What's up, YouTube? Mike here from Friction Jewelry in San Diego. I think it's about time I did a little quick tutorial on the Jinhu welder. That one right there, also known as the Amazon welder, or for some unknown reason, the unbranded welder. But I assure you, it does have a brand. It was made somewhere, in fact, China, and there's a lot of sellers that sell it on Amazon. So I'm going to tell you, basically how to do it, how to set it up, what the sort of the settings are that can get you started on, and yeah, I hope you find it useful. Here we go. All right, I got the big gray box. We're gonna do our best with my iPhone here to show you what's up. So looking at the back of the unit, you can see right there we have the argon input, the power, and the on switch. Literally 3 things in the back. That's all you got to do. So you take your power cord right here, pretty standard, like any computer. Plug it in. Okay. And I'll just plug this into my... Okay, so I've got the power plugged in there. And this port right here, this is where you're going to plug in your argon gas. Now, the Orion and other regulators use a 1/4-inch tube. This one is in metric, so it's a little bit smaller actually, so you kind of got to force it in there a bit if you have a 1/4-inch tube, but it's okay to use it. All right, down here is where I keep my argon gas in a little bucket, just like that. Once you have your gas connected to the back of the unit, you can go ahead and turn on your gas. All right, you should see the dial on the right go up to, if your tank is full, this one's almost full, it's 150 bar, which is like a little over 2,000 PSI. And then if you want to increase your flow, you're going to turn this to the positive direction. Keep going. Whoa, that's probably actually too much. So if you go up too much, you kind of got to turn the gas off and bleed the line. But for purposes of this demo, we'll just go with it. But ideally, I probably want to get it really just close to 6 because this is liters per minute, I think. Yeah, not PSI. If it was 10 PSI, that would be okay, but yeah. Okay, so we got our gas plugged in. We have our power plugged in. Let's switch it on. And boom, and you can see the... Okay. That was just when it turns on this machine, the actuator and the stylus actually fires once. Not fires, but it just like tests itself, and you could hear the gas rushing out because I have the flow meter set pretty high at like 10 liters per minute, which is way too high for this, but we'll just keep going. Right here, this is the default setting. It's 2% power and 6 milliseconds. This setting, unfortunately, it likes to revert to this setting every like half an hour or 15 minutes. That's the biggest minus with this machine. All right, next thing we need to set up is the stylus, the electrode. So this cap unscrews just like that. And what I really like about this is there's this textured thumb screw right here to pull your electrode out. Okay, now this one is super dirty, so very important, before you do anything, clean your electrodes. So I got a little Dremel right here with a jig on top. You're gonna put that in, turn it, super clean. That's that. And you're gonna load it back in here. I actually sharpened both sides. Feel free to do that. Some people say that you shouldn't do that, but I've had no problem with it. Now this one, boom. You want your electrode sticking out like 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more than that, 3/8. Right about, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, it's really small, but you don't want like a big needle sticking out. That would be the most I would go. You can kind of see right there, it's probably like a half your fingernail. All right, so that's all good to go. Next, we need to hook up our ground, okay? Now, my machine came with no grounds, right? I know some people's come with the little grounded tweezers. I highly suggest that you pick yourself up, you pick up some grounded pliers, or you make yourself some. Now, these are on Amazon, they're like $20, $25, maybe even less. I just cut the end off and I welded the wire onto the plier, and then, I had this banana clip, which was actually part of a, one of these ones you can get from Sunstone, which have the little alligator clip. I just cut this off and I put the plier on. That way I already didn't have to put a banana plug because it was already on one. But if you need to get one of these, they're at lots of hardware stores. So we're gonna plug that in. Okay, so now we're pretty much set up and we are ready to rock. Let's do it. All right, the number one question that I get is, what's up with the settings on this machine? Like, what do I do for this metal? What do I do for that metal? What you guys have to understand is that it's not necessarily the metal that you use, but how thick it is, right? So, for example, okay, this right here is like a big, and just for, I never use jump rings this big, but this is a big, I would say 20 gauge jump ring, okay? Now this is a pretty thick jump ring. You almost wouldn't even have to weld this if you were using on a bracelet. I mean, it is solid. When you close this thing, especially if you're using bigger link chains, this thing is gonna stay closed. However, for purposes of the demo, let's weld it and see what happens. So, something this big, this is sterling silver. Honestly, you probably could get away with right at 2.6. Just to be certain though, I have a clean electrode. I'll kick it down to 2.3 and we'll see what happens. All right, hopefully I can keep this in focus. This is the grounded plier right here in my left hand. Now, before you even attempt to weld something like this, you really need to practice closing your jump rings. If you're brand new to jewelry, this is a skill that you just absolutely have to master before you even try to mess with the welder. Okay, jump rings open this way, okay? They do not open this way, right? So you wanna have no gap. You should not even be able to see that gap. So what you do is you go a little bit further, okay? And then you kind of come back. Oh, these pliers are not meant for this. And you could hear that little click, right? You check it from the top, you know, get it lined up, okay? And that's pretty much ready to go, all right? And then you're gonna take your stylus, and your goal here is to, oh, come on, getting back in focus. Your goal here is to be perpendicular to that joint, that seam right there with this welder, okay? And you're gonna, I can't see, hold on. You're gonna press it to the joint. You could hear the gas come out and you could see it fire. Sorry, let me try to get it in focus. All right, so I hit it a few times, but I don't know. Okay, yeah. You can test it to see. I normally work with a microscope, but you can see like I'm wiggling back and forth. I mean, it's welded. Okay, I've kicked it up to 2.6. Let's see what happens. So, totally safe there. Boom, super solid. Okay, so we've got that little weld done pretty cleanly. And speaking of cleanly, if you check my electrode right now, because I'm running argon, I'm actually running too much argon, but it's pretty clean. You know, I hit it like 3 times with some decent amount of power, 3 or 4 times. If you're not running argon, this is gonna be black already. Like, and you're gonna have to clean it. And, you know, and it's, you know, whether you should use argon or not is really a no-brainer. You should. You know, in my last video, I sort of alluded to the fact that you could wait, and you can, right? I mean, you could do a couple shows or a couple events, and, you know, your welds are, of course, are gonna be a little bit more brittle, but they're probably gonna be just fine. You know, we're not welding buildings together. We're not doing like heavy work here. These jump rings are not gonna have a ton of stress on them. No one's gonna be bending them with pliers. So, you know, I think once you start getting more professional and you wanna, you know, work with much daintier pieces where it really does matter. For example, I have here, and this is what I normally work with. This is a 24 gauge, 2.3 millimeter jump ring. This is like one of the go-tos for permanent jewelry. The weld here, there's just less surface area, right? There's less wire, it's thinner. So the quality of the weld is more, it's more critical that you get a really strong weld here because you're dealing with chain links that are very small. So if this jump ring were to open even just a little bit, that chain would come out and it would break. So let me put this under the magnifying glass here and I'll show you, you know, another demo. All right, I'm gonna do my best to keep this in focus, but basically this is what you do. Same thing as before. Get it nice and closed up, like so. There should be very little seam, and I'm gonna put this on 1.3 and see what happens. And this is like, you know, this is kind of what we're doing here. You just experiment. I mean, no one's, even these settings that you try to use, they might work for one person, they might blow it out for another. But this is as low as this goes. So, so the biggest disadvantage with this welder is this is as low as it goes, right? But that's gold filled 24 gauge, and that's at 1.3, and it's welded. I'm sorry I can't get a cleaner shot. So yeah, most of you who are buying this machine just starting out are gonna be working with sterling silver and gold filled, and you'll be using 1.3, 2.3, 1.6, and 2.6. You need to make sure that you check your settings literally before every client. I mean, when I was using this thing, I think maybe I did like maybe 500 people with this before I got the Orion. More than one. You know, had a very small project, and that electrode got a little dirty. I wasn't running argon at the time. This thing jumps up to 2.6, and boom, you can get a really good spark from this machine. 2.6 is pretty powerful. I'd say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe like 9 to 10 watt seconds on the Orion, which is like, you know, it's a good amount of juice. So that's something you really got to check. You got to, you know, always check here and make sure it's what you want. Over here you can select, I forgot to go over this, but I'll look at it. I always keep it on half a second for the gas. I don't really see a reason to use more than that. I think honestly the gas, that if you put it up too high, what happens is the gas actually just blows past the weld point. So if you have your pressure on your flow meter and your regulator set too high, not only are you going to waste argon with every weld, but it's actually just going to go right by the project. It's literally just going to puff right by, and you want to create sort of a shield around that weld, right? And so you just want a little bit of pressure for that stream to come out. But that said, you know, this thing works great with argon. People said that it makes their tank leak and this and that, and I haven't had any of those problems. This machine's not going to burn anybody. I mean, look, you know, it's like you need to complete a circuit, right? That's why you have a ground. Okay, maybe I should have gone over this earlier, but the way this welder works is that when you touch your piece, which is grounded, to the electrode, you complete a circuit, right? And when that actuator fires, the electrode just pulls away from your piece to create that arc. So the electricity, you know, and you get an arc and you get heat, and that heat makes the weld. So that's the quick overview on the Jinhu welder. Ask me in the comments if I forgot to go over anything. I tried to just do like setup, you know, basic settings, you know, and I encourage you to play with it. Like there is no, you can't read on the internet. I think the Orion welder even comes with a little packet that tells you like what settings for every chain. It's a loose guide at best. But I can tell you with certainty, in most cases on this guy, you won't go over the 2% power in 6 milliseconds for permanent jewelry. Not necessary. So yeah, that's it. Let me know. Happy welding, and good luck to you guys. Like I said, if you listen to nothing that I just said in this video, keep your electrodes clean, man. I got a couple of videos on these electrode sharpeners. It's just absolutely the most critical thing in permanent jewelry. It's more important than argon, I think, even more important than whatever welder you're using. If with a dirty electrode, your welds they'll just stop working, and you'll be like, you'll keep jacking the power up and just won't weld, and you'll just be like, just pulling your hair out. Take a second, take a deep breath, stop what you're doing, take the electrode out, grind it down really quick. Even if you have someone sitting in front of you, even if you're struggling and sweating, just chill out, grind your electrode, lower your power after you clean your electrode, and just start again, new jump ring, whatever you need to do. So yeah, that's that. One other thing I'll mention that's come up before: how do I clean the soot off of the jump ring, especially when you're using gold filled? There's a couple things you can do. The quick and easiest I usually do is I have a little polishing cloth here. This is a jewelry cloth. You can get them on Rio, and just give it a little rub and it'll come right off. There's also a fiberglass pen. I use this I wear black gloves when I use this one, and because fiberglass is not good for your skin, so don't feel like rubbing people with this fiberglass pen. All right, I think that's it. Finally, okay. Happy welding, y'all.